So, what is ko? Ko is a grammar form that attaches to a verb stem to connect clauses together with the meaning of and or and then. So, for example, we have a sentence here. 미국 사람이고 한국어를 공부해요. This means I'm American and I study Korean. So I'm listing two facts about myself. First, that I'm American, and second, that I study Korean. And I have joined these two clauses together by attaching ko to this noun. Ko can be attached to verbs and it can be attached to nouns. So let's look at this a little bit more and how to conjugate it. So, first of all, we have some tenses. In present tense, you just keep it the same, ko. Past tense, we have at, ot, ko. You're going to recognize this at, ot from asossoyo, some things like that, talking about the past tense. And we also have a future tense form, ulkogo or ulgoshigo. Technically, the full form, I think, is ulgoshigo, but it's frequently shortened to just ulkogo. Ulkogo. So when you're attaching ko to verbs, you can use either action verbs, 동사, or descriptive verbs, 형용사, and you just attach ko to the verb stem. Remember that the verb stem is just the base verb minus ta. So you take away ta from the dictionary form and you find the verb stem. So for a verb like 읽다, you take away ta and you attach ko. 읽다 means to read, so 읽고 means read and something. This is not a complete sentence, you need to add some more information, but essentially that's all you have to do. The verb 듣다 is to listen, so you just remove ta and you write 고. 듣고 means to listen and something else. So let's look at some examples. Oh, also, it doesn't matter if the verb stem ends on a vowel or a consonant, you just attach ko, just like for pisada. Question, does Korean language not have a structure like adding s or changing the tense of a word? They have a structure for adding s like this for making plurals, and they also have a structure for changing tenses of verbs. So yes, they do exist. Okay. So it doesn't matter if the verb stem ends on a vowel or a consonant. 고 싶어요. Yeah, if you add 고 싶어요, you can also add to want to your sentences. Yes, S is oui. If you want to talk about possessive, not plural, yeah, I said plural before, I meant possessive. Okay. So we have some example sentences. Let's look at this sentence here. It says, 책을 읽고 음악을 들어요. I got your book this week in the mail. Amazing. I'm so glad it arrived. I hope you like it. You can read along with us here. My pronunciation needs work. Thank you. I know. I am not a native speaker and my pronunciation is not perfect. If you do buy this book, make sure to check out the audio recordings. All of these sentences have been spoken by native speakers, so you can copy their pronunciation and not mine. Anyway, so for example, 책을 읽고 음악을 들어요 means I read a book and I listen to music. You're saying two things. Let me just zoom in a little bit. 책을 읽다 is to read a book, and now we have our verb conjoining thing here, 고, and now we have 음악을 들어요. So 책을 읽다 is to read a book, and 음악을 듣다 is to listen to music. So 책을 읽고 음악을 들어요. I read a book and I listen to music. Next one. 음악을 듣고 점심을 먹어요. So we have this thing again, 음악을 듣다 again. And now we have a different sentence, a different second clause. So we're doing two things. We are 음악을 듣고, we are listening to music, and does anyone know what the other thing we are doing is? 점심을 먹어요. 점심을 먹어요. I listen to music and eat food. Yes, excellent. It's specifically a certain type of food. Close. Lunch. Perfect. Jenny Almanza. Yes, 점심 is lunch. So you're eating lunch and listening to music. Now, these two actions are not necessarily at the same time. If they're happening at the same time, you'd use a different form. You would use these words when you were just listing some things that you do. Question. What's the difference between 듣다 and 들다? 들다 is a different verb. 듣다 is the verb to listen. And when it conjugates, it becomes 들어요 because it's do you get a regular verb? It conjugates from this to this because of this irregular conjugation. You can check on this irregular form if you need to refresh on that. This verb 들다 is a different verb. It has a lot of different meanings actually, including to hold, to turn, all sorts of things. So yeah, those are two different words. What pen am I using? This is just a pencil. Okay. Yeah. So this 들어요 is the conjugation, present tense conjugation of the verb 듣다, which means to listen. Okay. And the last example sentence we have is 날씨가 춥고 비가 와요. So 날씨 is weather. So you're saying that the weather is 춥다, is cold, and 비가 와요. It is raining. Okay, so this is sort of showing that 고 can be used with descriptive verbs and it can be used with action verbs. Just the same, you just attach 고. Okay, so when you're adding to a noun, you attach 이고. If the noun ends on a consonant, if the noun has a 받침, a final consonant, you attach 이고. So 미국 사람 ends on a consonant, so it becomes 미국 사람이고, to be American. And whereas 여자, the verb, the word meaning woman or girl, ends on a vowel sound, so you just attach 고, 여자고. This is how it was used in our first sentence. This sentence here, 미국 사람이고 한국어를 공부해요. 미국 사람이고 because it ends on a consonant sound. 랑 and 이랑, what is the difference? Yeah, kind of similar to 랑 and 이랑. You'll see this trend a lot. If the noun ends on a consonant, you frequently add an E in the middle to it. So example sentences of using 고 with nouns. 저는 미국 사람이고 한국어를 공부해요. I'm American and I study Korean. 저는 학생이고 영어를 공부하고 있어요. This is using our 고 있어요 form, which we've used in a previous form. This is the present progressive tense, so it shows that you're doing an action in progress. So this sentence means I'm a student and I'm studying English. 영어 is English. 영어를 공부하고 있어요 means I'm studying English. And 이고 학생이에요. And I'm a student. All right. And then what about this last sentence? What does this last sentence mean? So 저는 여자고 20살이에요. 저는 여자고 20살이에요. What does this mean in English if you were to translate this? We had 여자 in the previous one. Yes, perfect. Great. I'm 20 years old and I'm a girl. I'm a woman and I'm 20 years old. Perfect. That's exactly right. I'm a woman or I'm a girl and I'm 20 years old. Now, this number, when you're talking about ages, you use the native Korean numbers, which for 20 is 20. Each group of 10, 10, 20, 30, 40 has its own name in native Korean numbers. If you say 24, people will understand you, but it's just not as natural. 24 is the Sino-Korean numbers, but you should use the native Korean numbers for age. Okay. How do you say international age? That is an excellent question, and I do not remember the Korean for that right now, but you can probably Google that and find out. 24 for telling time. Yeah, if you're telling minutes, you can use 20 for 20, but if you're talking about hours, you use the pure Korean numbers. You use 하나, 둘, 셋, 넷, etc. One of the joys of learning Korean is that they have two number systems and they are both used for different things. So, 저는 23살이에요. Oh, perfect. You are 23 years old. Amazing. Good sentence. Okay. So, let's look at how you join clauses together. So you have, for example, two sentences here. You have 저는 미국 사람이에요. What is the name of this book? This book is called Conversational Korean Grammar. Okay, so we have these two sentences. 저는 미국 사람이에요. 한국어를 공부해요. So these are two different sentences. One says I am American. The second one says I study Korean. So how do we join these together? Well, this sentence here ends in 미국 사람. So we are going to be attaching 고 to 미국 사람, which ends on a consonant. So we know we want to add 이고. So we'd add 저는 미국 사람이고 한국어를 공부해요. So question. So go is used for when I want to say I do something and another thing. Yeah, that is a very common use for. Go is used a lot for when you're listing things that you do. Yeah. So you, like we said before, so you attach go here, 미국 사람이고, and then you follow with your next clause. 저는 미국 사람이고 한국어를 공부해요. I'm American and I study Korean. What about this next sentence? 친구를 만나요. 영화관에 가요. This is two sentences. I meet a friend. We go to the movies. This book is Conversational Korean Grammar. Yeah, 만나고, or close, 만나고, has a nian on the bottom. 만나고 영화관에 가요. I meet a friend and go to the movies. So the verb here is 만나다. So you take off the present tense ending and you attach 고, and now you follow with your next sentence. 영화관에 가요. We're going to learn a slightly different way of saying sentences like this that uses a different grammar form that can be more natural in certain situations. So keep that in mind. We're going to come back to sentences like this later on in the lesson, later on in the live stream. Okay? And let's look at this last one. 한국에 가요. 그리고 일본에 가요. I go to Japan, full stop, 그리고, and I go to Japan. I go to Korea, full stop, and I go to Japan. So again, we have this first clause, 한국에 가요. This verb is 가다. So we take off 다, take off 요, and it becomes 가고. Perfect, yeah. 한국에 가고, 일본에 가요. 한국에 가고, 일본에 가요. I go to Korea and Japan. Okay. How long is this live stream lesson? It's going to be probably about an hour. Okay. An important point about joining these clauses together is that you can drop subjects. So let's look at this a little bit more. If the subject of both sentences is the same, it's natural to drop the subject from the second clause so that you're not giving repeated information. For example, we have a sentence here. 사과가 좋고 사과가 맛있어요. Question, can I say 친구를 만나서 영화관에 가요? And what's the difference? Yes, so that sentence is actually more natural than this sentence. And the difference is one that I'm going to be talking a little bit about later. Essentially, so you're using a different grammar form. You're using the 아, 어, 서 grammar form versus the 코 grammar form. And when you're talking about going somewhere and doing something for some purpose, you usually use 아, 어, 서 because it's used when the clauses are dependent. Whereas 코, the clauses are generally independent. This is just a general trend. So if your two clauses are dependent on each other, for example, in this sentence, you met a friend and you go to the theater, the movie theater. So if going to the movie theater is related to you meeting your friend, if you met a friend so that you could go to the theaters together, you should probably use 아, 어, 서 because going to the theater, going to the movie, depended on meeting your friend. You met your friend and then together you went to the theater. If you use 코, the clauses might not be related to each other at all. So if you say 친구를 만나고 영화관에 가요, it might mean that you met a friend and then separately you went to the movies without your friend. You met a friend, but then later in the day, without your friend, you went to see a movie. Because when you use 코, those clauses are not necessarily related to each other. When you use 코, those clauses can be independent of each other. So that's an essential breakdown of that. We're going to talk about it a little bit more when we get to the 아, 어, 서 chapter. I hope that answers your question. So it would be 친구를 만나서 영화관에 가요. Yes, if you went to the movie with your friend. If you and your friend went to the movies together, you should say 친구를 만나서 영화관에 가요. Yeah. Cool. All right. So dropping subjects. Can I order this book from your site? Yes, you can. Okay. So we have this sentence here. 사과가 좋고 사과가 맛있어요. So this sentence is okay. It's not necessarily a bad sentence or a grammatically incorrect sentence, but it's more natural to say 사과가 좋고 맛있어요. 사과 is apple and 좋다 is to be good. So 사과가 좋고 is the apples are good, that you like apples. And 사과가 맛있어요. And apples are tasty. Apples are delicious. But yet the second 사과 is not useful. It's not adding anything to the sentence. It's more natural in Korean to just drop it, to just cancel it, and say 사과가 좋고 맛있어요. Apples are good and delicious. Okay. Oh, I think I have my very first subscriber to the live stream. Amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Yay. I've met my subscription goal. Hooray. That's really cool. I'm happy. Okay. So the subject, 사과, can be dropped because it's already been established by the first clause. You know that you're talking about apples, so you don't need to say it twice. You can just drop it. Another example of this is in this sentence here. 한국어를 공부하고 한국어가 재미있어요. So you're saying you study Korean and Korean is fun. Right? I study Korean, 한국어를 공부하고, and Korean is interesting or fun. And Korean is interesting. But again, the second subject, this 한국어가, you don't need to repeat it because you've already established that you're talking about Korean. You can just say 한국어를 공부하고 재미있어요. And notice that we actually do something similar in English. When we have an established subject, it's pretty common for us to replace it with it. We replace established information with it or its or things like that. But in Korean, they don't use a word like it. They just drop it entirely. It's just gone. Can you also use 더? Yeah, you can use 더 as well. You can say 한국어를 공부하고 한국어도 재미있어요. You can say that. It's okay. People will understand. All right. So that's dropping subjects. And now we are going to talk about a series of events. So you can use 고 to talk about a series of events, and it often is translated to and then. So specifically when you're listing things that you do or things that you did, you can use 고 to link those things together. This book is Conversational Korean Grammar. For example, 커피를 마시고 직장에 가요. This means I drink coffee and then I go to my workplace. So this might be an answer to someone asking you a question like, what do you do in the morning? Like, what is your morning routine? You could say 커피를 마시고 직장에 가요. I drink coffee and then I go to work. 피자를 먹고 집에 가요. I eat pizza and then I go home. That could be, what do you do in the evening? Well, I eat pizza and then I go home. For example, like that. Now here we have this also coming up again in these later sentences, which is what someone was asking about before. So like we talked about before is when you use also, when you're talking about a sequence of events, it's sometimes more natural to use also instead of 고, particularly when you're using a sentence like I go and do. So if you're using 가다 verb, particularly when you're using a 가다 verb, it's most likely that you're going to be using also because these clauses are dependent on each other. For example, you're saying, 식당에 가서 피자를 먹어요. This ordering of a pizza happened at this restaurant. This eating of the pizza depended on the action of going to the restaurant. They weren't separate events. They happened together. So this is why we use also. A sentence like this, 직장에 가고 커피를 마셔요. Drinking coffee didn't necessarily depend on going to work. They're just two separate actions that you did. Whereas in this sentence, you went to this restaurant, and at that restaurant, specifically right after, you had pizza. This class is too advanced for me. I can read Korean, but I have no idea what you're saying. It takes time. I've listed this as beginner, but it was probably upper beginner. So I don't want you to get discouraged. Just keep practicing and you'll get there. And similarly for the sentence here, 도서관에 가서 공부해요 means you went to the library to study there. You went to the library and then you studied at that library. Going to the library was a precursor to you studying there. So, although you're going to mostly be able to translate, 고 means and also means so, I would encourage you to not lean on that too strongly because I definitely want you to remember that 고 is generally deep, independent clauses. 고 is independent clauses and also is dependent clauses. So if you can remember this, it'll help you out a lot and it'll help you make more natural sentences in Korean. Yeah. Okay. And now we have another note here that you can add as many clauses as you want. When you're adding 고, you can just keep adding in 고 and add more and more clauses. For example, 아침 식사를 먹고 I eat breakfast and 학교에 가고 I go to school, and 점심을 먹고, I eat lunch, and 도서관에 가고, I go to the library, etc. So you can just stick on as many as you like and list them out for as long as you would like. Okay. Now, obviously, the longer it goes, the longer the sentence gets, and you might not want to make it too long because people are gonna lose track of what you're saying. But the concept is there. You can add as many clauses as you like. Okay, now past tense. Now, this is a little bit tricky. So, what happens when you're joining clauses with 고 and you're talking about the past tense? So, 고 has a past tense form that you can use, and it's art 없고. And basically, when joining a sentence in the past tense, you can use either. But first, we're going to talk about this. To use 고 in a past tense sentence, just conjugate the final verb into the past tense. I recommend you do this most of the time because it's the simpler way, and generally it's more natural to just conjugate on the final verb. So let's look at how this works. For example, 커피를 마시고 직장에 갔어요. So notice that this intermediary 고 is just present tense, right? It's not conjugated into the past tense. But the final verb, 갔어요, is in the past tense because of this double sheet at the bottom. 갔어요. So, but the final verb conjugation at the end of the sentence controls the tense of the entire sentence. So even though it might look like it says, I drink coffee and go to work, it really means I drank coffee and went to work, because this final conjugation, this final verb in the past tense controls the tense of the entire sentence. In trouble with vocabulary, yeah. Actually, I should probably spend more time on vocab. So, 커피 is coffee here. 마시다 is to drink. 직장 is a word that means workplace or office. It's just kind of your place of work. Where you work is your 직장. Confusingly, 직장 also means colon, but, that's an aside. Okay. So, 커피를 마시고 직장에 갔어요 means I drank coffee and went to work. Another example is 친구를 만나고 피자를 먹었어요. So same thing. So the final verb 먹다, meaning to eat, is in the past tense. 안녕하세요. But this first part, 친구를 만나다, is to meet a friend. But because this final verb is in the past tense, this whole sentence is in the past tense. This sentence means I met a friend and I ate pizza. It's a small typo here. We have fixed this. This is an old version of the book. But yeah, it means I met a friend and ate pizza. So then let's look at this other form, this art 없고, and what this means. So a past tense form of 고 does exist, although it is optional, and these two conjugations, 고 versus art 없고, are roughly equivalent in meaning. To learn more, you can check the clausal verb tenses chapter. So we have a chapter in the back of the book that talks about this a little bit more. It's tricky because honestly, I have had so many conversations with native Korean speakers asking them about this difference. And to be honest, I've had different answers from different people. Some say they're exactly the same. Some say, one's better than the other. Some say the other's better than this one. I'm sure there is an official rule somewhere, but even native speakers seem to not know for sure. So generally, my advice to you is that if these things are happening in roughly the same time in the past, if the two things you're doing in the past are happened around the same time, just put the tense on the final verb. Just use it on the final verb only. You don't have to conjugate it in the middle. unless you'll specifically need to say that those two actions happened at different times. Like if you're saying, yesterday I met a friend and today I eat pizza, you can say like 어제 친구를 만났고 오늘은 피자를 먹어요, or something like that. But if those two things just happened in the same time, you can just put it on the final tense. Where can I buy this book? You can buy it on our website. We have PDF versions on our website, or you can buy it from Amazon or the book depository. Okay, so here's an example of the past tense form being used. 책을 읽었고 음악을 들었어요. So here we've conjugated the intermediate 고 into the past tense, and we also have the final verb in the past tense as well. And my understanding is that this sentence is basically the same whether or not you conjugate the middle to the past tense or not. And generally, I think it's more natural just to put it on the final verb. But here's another example. 날씨가 추웠고 비가 왔어요. It was cold. 날씨 is weather. 추웠어요 is to be cold. And 비가 왔어요 is to rain. So 날씨가 추웠고 비가 왔어요. It was cold and it rained. Okay? So again, you have the option of using this form, but generally I recommend just using this form and putting the final tense on the final verb. All right. And the same thing goes for the future tense. There is two forms. 이 책을 어디에서 살 수 있어요? Yeah, you can buy it on our website or you can buy it on Amazon. Can I contact you in DMs about the book? Yeah, of course. You can message us anytime. I'm not sure if you can message us directly on TikTok. If not, you can message us on our website as well. So the double jiet is what makes it past. Yeah, it's a double shiot. This thing on the bottom is the past tense. If you have missed what I'm talking about, check back on YouTube tomorrow. I'm going to post this on YouTube so you can watch it again if you have missed it. Okay, so yes, past tense is you have two options. Future tense, you also have two options. 상시옷, yeah. It's called a 상시옷. Literally twin 시옷. Okay, so you have two options. You have regular ko or you have 울거고. Technically, you can say 울것이고, but this is just shortened to 울거고. Generally, I just subscribed to your YouTube channel. Thank you. Okay. And so same sort of thing with the future tense. I recommend that if you're talking about two future actions, besides this book question, do you have one that focuses on vocab? I don't have one that focuses on vocab. A great book that I recommend, I actually have it right next to me. You can check out this book. This is book 2. There's also a book 1 from Talk to Me in Korean. This is a great book that focuses purely on vocab. They have like a specific word that they introduce and then they use it in all of these different ways. So you can starting easy and like getting more complicated, and you can repeat that for all sorts of different words as well. So yeah, check out these books if you want to practice vocabulary specifically. Okay. This book, my weekly vocabulary book, I'm not sure if it's on Amazon. Definitely check, but I think I bought it from Korea. So I had to ship it from Korea, but they might be on Amazon if you're lucky. Okay. So for example, oh yeah, another typo. We have fixed this typo. I meet a friend and eat pizza. 친구를 만나고 피자를 먹을 거예요. So our first clause is 친구를 만나다, which means to meet a friend. And now we have 피자를 먹을 거예요. So this 먹다 is conjugated into the future tense. 먹을 거예요. To eat in the future. Piza is pizza. And 먹다 is the verb to eat. So when you say 피자를 먹을 거예요, that means to eat pizza in the future. I meet a friend and eat pizza in the future. But notice again that this middle tense form is just the present tense, and the overall tense of the sentence is controlled by the final verb. So next sentence as well. 커피를 마시고 직장에 갈 거예요. I will drink coffee and go to my workplace and go to work. 커피를 마시다 is to drink coffee, and now we have 고, our joining form to mean and 직장에 갈 거예요. I will in the future go to work and drink coffee. Okay, so another note, ending a sentence with 고요. Now this is very common in Korean. You can end a sentence using 고 by just sticking it at the end of your sentence and then adding this 요 for formality. For example, if you have the verb 좋다, it means to be good. And you can just say 좋고요. It's good. And you're actually finishing a sentence like this, 좋고요. It means it's good, and some other things. Heading off, thank you. An English accent. I'm a New Zealander, so I am told sometimes I have a bit of a British accent, so that's not surprising. Okay, so when you add 고요 to the end of a sentence, what does it mean? So there's a couple different things that it means. Why do you say 좋은 거예요? Probably just because it's too small. It does say but the text is small. Yeah. A little hard to read, unfortunately. It's hard to try and get the whole page in, but then also have the text be readable. Anyway. So one way that this 고 is used is to add an afterthought. So say you were talking about something and then after you've finished, you want to just add another point on, something else that you thought of. You can use this 고요 to just indicate that, also this thing. So for example, 요리를 했어요. 설거지도 했고요. It means I cooked. Oh, and also I washed the dishes. And also I did the dishes. 요리를 하다 is to cook. 요리를 했어요 means I cooked. Thank you. And 설거지도 했고요. 설거지 is the word to do the dishes. And you're saying 도. You also see this 도 grammar form as well. This means also. Also the dishes, I did them too. It's like an afterthought, something that you're adding on. For another example, 프랑스어도 배우고 싶고요. 프랑스어 is French in Korean. And again, you see this 도 grammar form meaning also. So also French, 배우고 싶고요. 배우다 is to learn, and 고 싶다 is to want to do. So 배우고 싶다 is just to want to learn, but we've added our 요 form at the end to mean, and also I want to learn French. As an afterthought, oh yeah, another thing I want to learn is also, I'd like to learn French too. Now, notice how this 고요 has changed to 구요. This is another very common thing. I have a little note about it at the bottom here. But basically, when you change it to 구요, it's not technically proper grammar, but it's very common to use, particularly with younger people and particularly in conversation. And it just... oh, sure. Yeah, thanks. Let me just add you. I can follow. Thank you for the rose. So when it changes from koyo to guyo, it just makes it sound a little bit cuter, kind of. It's kind of easier for the mouth to say. 안녕하세요, 태국 사람입니다. Oh, hello. And it's very common to see this change happen, but it means the same thing. Okay, so another way that koyo is used is to suggest that you're going to talk more about some subject. This book is Conversational Korean Grammar. Okay, so it suggests that you're going to talk more about a subject. For example, we have this thing here. 그때는 제가 한국에서 살았고요. So 그때 means that time. So at that time, 제가 한국에서, I in Korea. So 제가 is me, 한국 is Korea, and this 에서 is the location of action particle to show that you're doing some action in some place. So in Korea, I was living. 살다 is to live, and we have the past tense for in the past. So at that time, I lived in Korea. And now we have this koyo ending at the end, and that just kind of sets up to the listener that you're going to talk more about that. You know, I was living in Korea, and I finished the sentence, but I'm going to talk more about it. At that time, I lived in Korea, you know, and etc. There's more coming about this. Similarly, 어제 친구를 만났고요. 어제 is yesterday, and 친구 is friend. 친구를 만났어요 would be yesterday I met a friend. 만나다, this verb here, 만나다 is to meet, but it's in the past tense. Again, the 상시역. So, 어제 친구를 만났고요. So yesterday I met a friend. And again, we have this 구요, which is just the conversational form of koyo to indicate that we're going to talk more about meeting my friend. Yesterday I met a friend and something else. Now, a third way that ko is used, and this is pretty common as well, is just to indicate to the listener that you are open to talking about a topic and encourage them to ask more about it. For example, if you say, 저는 한국어를 공부하고요. It's just saying, like, I study Korean, and, you know, if you want to ask me more about it, like, go ahead. Like, I'm happy to answer questions about me studying Korean. I study Korean, and I'm happy to talk about it. 저는 학생이고요. Means I am a student, and I'm happy to explain more. If you have questions, if you want to know what I'm studying, or, you know, anything like that, I'm happy to talk about it. And that kind of leads me into the number 4 way that this koyo ending is used. And that's just to make a sentence sound a bit softer and a bit more conversational. Every time you talk about a subject and you're continuing talking about it, you have to use koyo. No, I mean, it's not a rule. You don't have to use koyo if you're going to keep talking about it. It's a good question. It will make your Korean sound quite natural if you do. But you don't have to feel restricted by that or feel like it's a rule that you have to do. If it feels natural for you and you want to do it, yeah, feel free. May I know what this book is called? This book is Conversational Korean Grammar. So, so number 4 is really a very popular way that koyo is used. It's just to make the sentence sound softer and more conversational. So ko and ku are the same. Essentially, yes. Technically, ko is the correct way. Koyo is the grammatically correct way. Guyo is technically not correct grammatically, but it's very common. It's very, very common. Mostly with younger people, and mostly in conversation, but they mean the same thing. Yeah. Okay. Actually, just doing this one chapter took me 45 minutes, so I think I'm actually going to finish there and just have this live stream be about core. And next time, on Wednesday, I'll tackle jiman. But this chapter turned out to be longer than I thought. Hi, when we pronounce and not pronounce 상시읒, and why is it pronounced as a T sometimes? Can you show the last page one more time? Yeah. Okay. So this book is available on Amazon. It's available on our website if you want a PDF. And the reason why this double 시읒 changes to a T sound sometimes is because of these sound change rules. Okay, lots of different questions at the same time. Ku is only in the spoken language. You can see it written sometimes. It's not formal though. So if you see it written, it'll probably be in some sort of casual written, like in a text or things like that. So ku can be used in written language as well, even though it is a conversational form. Yeah. Okay, this 시읒 thing. So I recommend you look up Korean sound change rules, because there's kind of too much to talk about. I mean, I could probably spend a whole hour just talking about sound change rules, but basically Korean, when different syllables connect to each other, sometimes new sounds happen when you're speaking. And one of these sound changes is from this 상시읒 changing to a 디귿 sound or a 티귿 sound. That's one of the things that can happen, but there's so many. My handwriting is so pretty. Thank you. So yeah, I recommend you looking up sound change rules to practice this, because there's a lot. When do you use guyo? Is there a specific vowel consonant rule that changes koyo to guyo? Good question. So no, actually, guyo and koyo are basically the same. Grammatically, they serve the same purpose. They're conjugated the same way. They're conjugated to the same vowels. Guyo is just more casual, and koyo is more official. It's hard because they're both conversational forms. They're both forms that are used conversationally. Like this, your ending is in itself kind of a conversational way. This guyo, basically the reason guyo appeared is that younger people decided that this koyo sounded too harsh, sounded too strong, and this guyo is easier for your mouth to do, and it sort of sounds cuter. The guyo sounds cuter, so it gained popularity in speaking and stuff because people liked it more than koyo, even though koyo is the official way to do it. So it's one of those language trend things. Like if you are, what is the prescriptive and descriptive? I don't remember which one is which right now, but koyo is like, the official way. This is the way it should be. But language is always changing, right? People are always changing the rules. Native speakers themselves are changing the rules. And so this one has appeared and has gained popularity, particularly with younger people, because they think it sounds cuter, sounds nicer than koyo. But they're essentially the same practically. Yeah.